Durant, there he goes.
Westbrook does a great job of one-handed, left-handed pass. Works on his side. He doesn't leave.
Trent Jr. is checked in. Warriors stay with the same 5 starters. And Steph Curry hitting the wing jumper. Yes, dropping in that 3. Oh, Curry, a little split. Steph through it. Steph with the lift. So Steph Curry, beautiful beginning. And turnover. Pointer down. Free throw in the 3-point play. Curry right down the lane. How about that?
What's up, everybody? Sunday morning here on Win Daily Sports. I'm your host, Tony Jigsaw Cutillo, bringing you the Fantasy Firebox. And today, I love Sundays because we get to take a break. Adam, what's up, Adam? Always checking in, as always. Adam had an unbelievable pick last night, right? Adam, you sent me the fantasy nugget last night for the Arizona Diamondbacks, and he went off. He absolutely went off. I love it. Okay, absolutely great. I love when guys do that. Joe, what's up, man? Joey Gallo. So, listen, every now and then we hit big, right? We hit big on some of these guys. And again, WinDailySports.com, every single social outlet, whether it be Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, you know the deal, right? Go to the website, WinDailySports.com, YouTube page, follow, subscribe, hit the notification bell. At Cutillo23, my personal handle on Twitter, best where you can find me, and let's have some fun today because I would have talked some NFL, but before I talk some NFL, let's review yesterday because you're right, Joe. I had a feeling yesterday, right? I had that Joey Gallo feeling. I said, this is going to be a Joey Gallo day. And Joey Gallo is always up and down, right? He's up and down. I talked about it. He's that pure power hitter that you're going to live or die with, right? So I talked about that. And I said, every now and then, what he does is he explodes. And it may not be, it might be 16, 20, whatever it is, but at a $4,600, $4,500 value, they're the guys that allow you to win big. And what did Joey Gallo do yesterday? Hit 2 bombs, right? 2 bombs. And this is what I love. And I say this all the time because I absolutely love doing this shit, is I'm out and doing some errands, right? Running around. And obviously I throw the DraftKings live app up. I look, see how my players are doing, say, uh-oh, did I do good? Did I do bad? What are we going to talk about, right? And I got my guy Joe hit me up right away. Joey Gallo 2 bombs. Like, I don't even have to look. And I absolutely love it, man. It's great. My boy Brian hit me up this morning. Listen, all the guys that like the Alex Wood. Listen, I tell you, Alex Wood, 23 points, right? Prove me wrong. Kudos to all of you, right? I didn't go to Alex Wood direction, but you guys got me. He did well. I mean, and that's what it's all about. I didn't have that feeling yesterday, right? Can't hit them all. Nathan Eovaldi, very, very good. Had a good game, so I hope some of you guys started him as a nice value arm. Thinking about yesterday, DeGrom, obviously, he did not, listen, he didn't play up to his $11,400 price point, which against the Phillies, I'm actually shocked. It happens. J.D. Brubaker didn't give me the Ks that I thought was going to, give me, but there was a lot of good value matchups, and that's what I like to do. I like to add the value to the game. So today, what I want to talk about is this is mainly going to be a football show today, because here's what I want to start doing, just so everybody knows, is on Sundays, it's really tough, right? You have all the games. Most of them start 105, 215, and a lot of guys sit on Sundays, man. A lot of guys sit different lineups, and we do the show so early that those lineups aren't even out. We don't even know what's going to happen. So, I don't like old content. So what I'm trying to do is I think Sunday is a good day to kind of rehash a little bit of what we did yesterday. And then we got to bring some football into the play because football is my baby. I love football. I think we all love football. Baseball is the second best. For me, it's football, baseball, basketball. But I've been so excited looking at the average draft positions, ADPs, of a lot of these, major analysts and outlets out there. And they have me scratching my head. So I want to talk about that today. So before we get into that, I just have some value that I want to, show you guys that I'm looking at and for the upcoming week. And what I mean by that is players that, we're looking at that are going to be below, $3,000 that are really starting to come up, right? Really starting to come up. Guys that you should be able to get in your lineup, right? So one thing I wrote down is the proficient Pittsburgh Pirates, right? And I'm saying this because they have a lot of young talent from the simple fact. I shouldn't say talent because listen, Brian Hayes is their best, right? He's talent, but from a fantasy standpoint, we hear about consistent point producers all the time. I talk about that nauseum, right? I talk about that nauseum, and the reason why is we want guys, right, that want to give you consistent points, not zeros, right? Right. Reynolds is dirt cheap, right? I mean, listen, Moran, Reynolds, Polanco, Newman, Evans, all these guys under 3,000. I think Reynolds may be 3,100 if I'm not mistaken, but 3,300. I'm sorry, but all these guys are consistently for the Pittsburgh Pirates. You can plug and play, and that's what I want to let you guys. This is the kind of show I want to do today. I'm not going to do lineups specifically. I'm not going to do cores. We're just going to talk about what's ahead, right, for the week. I think that's a better way to do it on Sunday. I actually love this. So, and what I mean is I'm not breaking down the actual games. I'm looking at players that we may be able to look at for that value play. We're going to call it Value Play Sunday. Okay, that's what we're going to do. And I kind of enjoy, one thing I enjoy is picking out those little gems, right? So the proficient Pirates, either one of these guys, except for Reynolds, right? Reynolds is going to be a 3,500, still dirt cheap. Play like Joe said, playing really well. But guys like Gregory Polanco, guys like Newman, Phillip Evans, guys like Colin Moran, these guys are going to be the difference sometimes when, you have to put that high strategic arm in there, whether it be a Scherzer, whether it be a DeGrom, right? Whether it be a Cole, whether it be a Walker Buehler. You have to get guys like this in order, these cheap little stack options, right? These got 2,600, 2,500, and you have to hit on them too. So it's a difference because if Walker Buehler for 11.5 is going to give you 30, which is what you want. But then, you want your $2,500 guy to give you 10 to 15, even 7, like we say, baseline of 7 to 10. If he does that, you're going to win your matchup. You're going to cash because not everybody's taking these low ownership, low value guys. So I really like the proficient Pirates. Like I know, I'm telling you, look at those guys, man. Every time you're doing a lineup, look at those guys. Now today, and these are 3 guys that I was looking at for value today, and Dylan Carlson, Emmanuel Margot, and Anthony Rendon. Now, Anthony Rendon has finally dropped below 4,000. I know he's not had a great season. I get it. He's battling a couple things, right? We all understand that. He's battling some demons. That's okay. He's starting to heat up a little bit. Just a little bit. Now, he's too talented to go the entire season to be very lackluster at best. He's just too talented. That's not going to happen. So we need to pick our spots. And for me, when I see a player like Anthony Rendon consistently, between 4,000 and 5,000 and not doing very well, obviously I don't touch him, right? But I wait to pounce when his number drops in our benefit, right? In our favor. So today, I think, he's one of the plays today that drops in your favor. I like Anthony Rendon because he's under 4,000. He's under 4,000. So now Jarrett Walsh sat yesterday, so he'll obviously play today. More protection in the lineup. And again, this is Sunday at 9:30. Now we could look at the lineup and all of a sudden Rendon doesn't play. So this could throw this all to shift, but that's okay. I'm just mentioning him specifically because not just today, but going forward this week, his value is starting to drop. So I think he's a guy you can look at. Dylan Carlson was one of my guys for St. Louis that I liked probably about a month ago. A very low value in the threes, very low threes. He's still in the low threes, anywhere between 33 to 3,600. I really like that value. I like he's got protection in the lineup. He's going to get pitches to hit, and he's just a consistent point producer. I say that all the time. He's going to give you the 5, 7, 9, 10, 1. Like that's what you want. You don't want the zeros, right? You don't want the zeros, right? And you're right. Carson, absolute leadoff hitter for the Cardinals with guys like Arenado, right? In a lineup, guys like Goldsmith, Yadier Molina, right? We know what that lineup can be. So when you're able to get on base consistently and look at good pitches and be able to put the ball in play, you're going to give off DFS value. And I think that's what we have to look at in Dylan Carlson. He's a guy that you can lean on. Manuel Margot is another guy for Tampa Bay who I think does not get enough love. He's consistently between $2,900 and $3,100 on a really good Tampa Bay lineup. Really good Tampa Bay lineup. And because he's on that good Tampa Bay lineup, he's able to knock runs in, right? He's able to get guys home. You know, when you're playing with Meadows and Brousseau and Lowe, I mean, you have a ton, and now Franco, right? You have a ton of options within that lineup. And Margot is always there. Margot flips around the lineup, all over the place. He's that utility guy where, they put in different spots because they know he produces it for a fantasy perspective, to get another guy under 3,000 or under 3,200 that can give you, persistent points. I think that's where you go. So those three guys I would look at right there. Now let's look at the under $3,000 risers. I love this group. Okay. I absolutely love this group. The under $3,000 risers. And the reason why is we always look for the value. You guys know that. I'm always hitting up those values, right? So the thing I like about it is these are the guys that, again, when you're building these really strategical lineups with these big value numbers, you have to look at guys like this. Now, Miles Straw plays for the Houston Astros are on fire right now, right? They're on fire. So when you look at Miles Straw's numbers, you can see that, again, consistent. He's, and I'll pull this up. I'll pull it up for, everybody so they can at least understand, what I'm looking at, right? So another guy is, I pull this up. Of course, my screen wants to freeze right now. It's ridiculous. Whenever your screen freezes, it's insane. Okay. Miles Straw, again, he's 2,800 today, playing up against Detroit, going up against Skubal. And this is, again, not just for today, but this is going forward. Where he bats in a lineup, right? In each of the last 6 appearances, straight from DraftKings, he's 10 of 25. Okay, with a homer, 7 runs, 2 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 3 walks. What does that tell you? He checks all the boxes, right? And that's what I love about this. He checks all the boxes and plays in a really good lineup. He's averaging almost 7 fantasy points per game. So you have to look at guys like this, and he's under $3,000. So Miles Straw going forward is a guy this week I want you guys to look at for your lineups. I think that, again, he can be inserted into those big power lineups and big you the difference of your multiplier, your 50-50 head-to-head, taking you from 7th place to 1st place. I tell you that all the time. This is the way to go. Another guy that I'm really, really digging on is Jesse Sanchez, okay, from the Miami Marlins. Another young kid. Okay, another young kid. And the reason why I say that is so important is because these are the guys that we're going to look at that are going to start to climb up the charts, right? So here's a $2,000 salary guy. 4 out of the last 5 contests he's hit safely in. Okay, 4 out of the last 5 contests. What has he done? He's giving you persistent point production, right? 4 out of the last 5, he's giving you 2 multi-hit games. This is another, and he's only struck out 3 times as a young guy. $2,000. He will not stay at $2,000. Jesse Sanchez, okay, or Jesus, okay, Jesus Sanchez, I'm sorry, but Jesus will not stand at $2,000. Okay, he plays on a team that's going to get a lot of opportunity because they're not very good, right? They're not very good. So these are the kind of guys I look at. I want to give you guys, and his number hasn't really changed. He's actually started off at 2,500, and he's dipped all the way down to 2,000, even though he's given persistent points. So I think that one of these things is if you're always in a positive with some of these guys and their numbers don't move, it's definitely time to pounce. A lot of P's in these statements today. P's all over. It's like, OPP from Naughty by Nature, old school reference because I'm a 90s hip hop guy. But let's continue. Jesus Sanchez, get him in your lineups this week. Okay, look at him to insert him in your lineups as long as he's starting. Today, obviously, he's got Max Scherzer. He's probably going to stymie him a little bit. So I wouldn't be all too thrilled about putting him in the lineup today. But I think, again, this is about going forward this week. I think he's another guy that you can look at, okay, because when you build these lineups, I don't have to keep saying the same thing. When you build these lineups, what happens is you need these kind of guys. You just need these kind of guys, okay? Straw gets you steals. Straw does everything, right? Straw does everything. And you're right. Joe, he's figured it out. And this is what these young kids do. What they do is they come in and listen. Look at Wander Franco, right? So comes in, has a huge game. He'll have more huge games, and then what's going to happen is they're going to get film on him. They're going to learn how to pitch to him. We're going through the same thing in Philadelphia with a kid named Alex Boehm. Now, Alex Boehm isn't this fantastic fantasy performer, but you're looking at Alex Boehm and you're saying, okay, he's been good. He was good in the beginning. He was hitting the ball to all fields, and then they got tape on him, and then they got film, so they learned how to pitch to him, right? So then he went through this milestone. Now all of a sudden, the last 10 games, he's starting to come out of it because he's starting to adjust. It's a chess match, and then they adjust again, right? So it's really hard to have rookie success in Major League Baseball. It really is. It's one of the hardest sports to consistently be solid as a rookie. It really is, because they're always looking at film on you all the time. So yeah, right now, Joe, you have it in caps, consistent. You know how I roll. I love getting you on board. Consistent point production. Get those guys in there to give you consistent points. I absolutely love it. Now, the other guy I'm talking about is Shed Long Jr. from the Seattle Mariners. He's another 5-tool check the boxes guy. Okay, and again, he's not electric. He's not, oh my God, but look at his numbers. Okay, and he's another guy that I mentioned probably about 4 weeks ago. Okay, I love watching the guys that we mentioned, the FFVP guys, the low value guys, and then all of a sudden, right? All of a sudden, we get to start seeing their number goes up, and people start talking about them, right? But we talk about them first here on the Fantasy Firebox, and that's what I love about it. It's almost like there are little flowers that sprout up, and all of a sudden, right? It's like, oh, we watered the flowers, we gave them some food, now all of a sudden they're blooming, right? And they're graduating. So, that's what I look at some of these players. I look for them to do. So, Shed Long Jr. I just call him SLJ. SLJ to me for Seattle is in the perfect spot. Again, he's in a lineup where he's always going to be asked to do something. Okay, he's always going to be asked to do something. So I really like. So he served as the club's primary left fielder since being recalled in June 7th. This is straight off the DraftKings site. It says, every now and then he gets a breather. He's not always in the starting lineup, but when he is in those starting lineups, now from the 18th to the 23rd, he was in there consistently. Didn't miss a game. And within those 5-game sample size, he had 2 games, 1 of 14 and 1 of 20. Okay, so it just shows you what he can do, because why? He does it all. He hits home runs, right? He gets extra base hits. He scores runs. He knocks in RBIs. He doesn't walk a lot, and he does have a strikeout per game. But I can take that again. $2,700. He's another value guy. Look at him this week. I think that he's another guy that you could insert in your lineups and get some decent value. So I want to go before we switch it up. I still want to go. We did this yesterday with Trevor Larnach. But obviously the game was postponed. It didn't happen. So I want to go with the FFVP today again with Trevor Larnach. I'm all over him. 2,700. I think he's another guy that is going to give you a double-digit point total today. Go off for that number. So if you're setting your Sunday lineup, so you need a guy under 3,000 that you think could really separate you from the pack, Trevor Larnach is another guy to look at. Now, I want to switch topics here, and I want to start talking NFL fantasy football. And this is what I love. I love this time of year because I've told you guys this story before. I was honestly never a daily fantasy sports guy. I was a hardcore traditional fantasy sports kind of, whether it be baseball, basketball, season long. That was my thing, building the lines for the long haul, getting those gems. Who's going to be the rookie I want on my team that's going to produce later on, right? And then I opened up to this world at DFS, and I've absolutely loved it. I do. So now I do both. I love season long, and I love DFS. So just to give you guys an idea, when I do a lot of this football talk coming up, I'm going to do it in two different perspectives. I want to give you guys a DFS perspective, when we talk about week-to-week streamers, and I want to talk about season long because, guys, I think that you can tie your, you can hitch to, tie the rope to the hitch to and ride out all year long. And I do. I really think of that. And I want to start today talking about quarterbacks. And, we've brought up quarterbacks before on this show, but I've really started to dive in. And I started to look at some of these ADPs that are coming out from these national outlets, and I honestly don't know where they're going sometimes. I don't. And that's what I love about it. I respect everybody in their profession. I love what they do. But the great thing about this world that we live in, especially in the digital world, we all get to have an opinion. And not only do we get an opinion, my thing is, as long as you have an opinion and you can analyze it and back it up, that's even better. Okay. People are going to gravitate towards that, right? Even if you're not right all the time, at least you have a basis for what you're preaching. And today I want to talk about quarterbacks because I think from a fantasy standpoint, whether it be season long or DFS, quarterback is a very, very unique position this year because after you get through your top 3 or top 4 or top 5, it's kind of all crapshoot. So many different guys changing uniforms, changing head coaches, different offensive schemes, players or rosters changing. You got a guy like Julio Jones who goes from Atlanta to Tennessee. What does that do for a Ryan Tannehill? What does that do for a Matt Ryan? What does that do for A.J. Brown? What does that do for a Calvin Ridley, right? There's so many different scenarios, and that's why I'm going to love the football talk this year. And let's get started today. So, I'm not going to get who's the top 5 quarterbacks and this and that. I just want to talk about quarterbacks specifically. I want to do an overview, and I want to do an overview of guys that I'm looking at in the sense that what can we expect, right? So we already start with the question marks, and that's going to be question marks. Number one's got to be, to me, well, actually 2 question marks. It's Aaron Rodgers, and based on what is he going to do? We know the situation. Is he going to play in Green Bay? Is he going to play football at all? Will he go somewhere else, whether it be Denver or New Orleans? I don't know. But it's going to be a late, consensus. Now, this is the problem with season long is because when you set your drafts up, and I'll tell you what, I run one league that I've been running for probably about 20 years, and I absolutely love it. I do. It's a very unique. We start doing PPR before PPR was even a thing, right? And I do like that. And what I like about it is, we do the draft so late that literally it's like the night before the first game, and we don't add the Thursday night game into the scoring. And, we actually start on Sunday. So we do something a little different, which is we do something with the Thursday night game, but we don't add it in. It's pretty neat the way we do it. So it's a long story. It would take me forever to explain, but really, really cool league. And we've had the same guys in there for basically 20 years. A guy here or there would drop out. We pick one up, but it's been really fantastic. But the reason why I bring it up is because those late drafts are key. And I say that because especially when you're dealing with an Aaron Rodgers situation. Now, we've dealt with this before, right? We've all dealt with this before. Le'Veon Bell, most recent. Like, what do you do? Do you draft him? Does he fall? Where do you draft? It's nerve-wracking. And that's why, I love the DFS aspect because you don't have to worry about that. If he's playing that day, pluck him in there. If he's not playing, guess what? He doesn't get in a lineup, right? And that's what I think is great about it. I do. Adam checking in says, how is Jalen Hurts going to play out this year? Okay. Adam, I love this question because I'm a big Jalen Hurts guy. I am. And not Don't get me wrong. Do I think he's going to win Super Bowls and this and that? No, I think the kid can play. This is a kid who has faced adversity his entire career. Jalen Hurts has faced adversity in every school he's gone to, in every program he's going to. And now in his professional career, he had to face adversity again, getting drafted behind the a la Carson Wentz, right? The king at that time of the Philadelphia Eagles. And what did Jalen Hurts do? Jalen Hurts shoved all that adversity off, went into a Green Bay game in Lambeau, and just showed he can ball out. And I think that's what you have to look at when you start talking about Jalen Hurts. You have to take different sample sizes. You have to take them and break them down and say, can he make this throw? Can he throw on the run? Can he read a coverage? Can he grab the hot route when needed, right? So there's some things. And one thing I will tell you, Jalen Hurts last year, when he was the starting quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles for a 3-week sample size, okay? 3 weeks. What I will tell you, for those 3 weeks in fantasy, he was in the top 3 twice. And he was actually the number 1 quarterback in one of those weeks. So Jalen Hurts has a skill set that we like for fantasy football. He does. He has a skill set we like for fantasy football. And the reason why we like it is because, number one, he's mobile. And number two, the Philadelphia offense is very underrated right now. They do have a lot of weapons. Now, are they going to win 10 games? No. They're not. If you think they're going to win 10 games, you're fooling them. But Jalen Hurts is going to have a ton of options. Listen, we don't know how they're going to use Jalen Reagor. Jalen Reagor was a bust of a pick. I still don't like the pick, but at least I think he can do something, right? Sirianni can get him to do something. Travis Fulgham, I think, can come back to some kind of sensibility in the sense that he can be productive as a number 3 wide receiver. Devontae Smith, again, listen, I talked about this last week. This kid was drafted where he is for a reason. Size, irregardless. Okay, we heard all about this with Deshaun Jackson. The biggest thing with Devontae Smith is he knows how to get open. He's a very smart and intelligent football player, and he's going to know how to run the right routes in order to help his quarterback out. And he already has a previous relationship with Jalen Hurts. So, if you add that in with a Dallas Goedert and a Miles Sanders, I think Jalen Hurts has a lot of weapons. He's going to keep people on his toes. So I love Jalen Hurts. I was a big Jalen Hurts guy. Continue to be a Jalen Hurts guy. From a fantasy perspective, I say, in my opinion, Jalen Hurts is a top 7 fantasy football quarterback. And he could push for that 5th spot in the top 5 when it's all said and done, right? When all said and done. So, Joe says, I think Jordan Love is fine. Rodgers' first full year, 6-10 turned out okay. And again, he's talking about he's a Packers fan. He's talking about Aaron Rodgers. He says a lot of beat writers out there feel he will show up. Here's the thing, Joe. What I will say about Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers' ego is this big, right? Here's a guy who actually paid to ship all the presents back that his parents sent him for Christmas just to prove a point, right? So, so that's the one thing I will say, that Aaron Rodgers' ego is so big. I can't just see him, basically bitching up, so to speak, and saying, you know what? I'm good. I didn't mean all that. Ready to play. I don't see that happening. I see a very bad situation out there that's going to continue to get worse as long as he's around. So I don't think he'll be back. But, if he is, kudos to you guys because you need him. But and if he is, I don't think we can expect elite level play like he did last year, just my opinion. So I think you need to adjust your rankings if you're an Aaron Rodgers guy. Now, Joe says, what's your reason for Waddle going before Devonta? Honestly, I talked about this before. So, Joe, this is the way I feel about this situation. I think Miami took the best receiver for what they do behind their quarterback into it. And hear me out. This is why. And I talked about this before because I think you have to look at, people don't draft anymore for need, they don't draft best overall player, I should say, a lot anymore. They don't. Teams, you're noticing a trend now that they're playing to their strengths. They're drafting who fits best in their scheme and what they need. So I look at last year, I look at a quarterback in Tua who doesn't throw the ball well down the field, right? I think we all know that. His game is the short passing game. And what better receiver than Jalen Waddle, whose yards after the catch are all above 18? Okay, he's the best play for that offense. I think that they took him specifically. Number one, he does have a previous relationship, maybe not that long, does have a previous relationship. But number two, there was a guy, okay, for that played for the Miami Dolphins last year in receiver, okay, in Jeremy Grant, okay, and what he did was he actually was very fantasy productive because he was a yards after the catch guy. So I think the reason why they took Waddle over Devonta is because I think they thought that Waddle is a better yak kind of guy that is going to situate Tua in great positions in order to be productive. And what I mean by that is I could see right now Devontae Parker, Will Fuller going deep, right? Going for long. You got Mike Gesicki, who's actually taking coverage off, with that blind side, either corner that comes up or tight end or linebacker on the tight end. And that's going to open up the middle of the field for two guys, Myles Gaskin and Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle. And the reason why is because Tua needs to build off confidence, right? He needs confidence, and he needs the short passing game to work for him to build confidence up. So I think Waddle was the best catch and run guy in the draft, and I think that's why they took him in Miami before Devonta Smith, because I think they're going to set up an offensive formula that's going to be, you know what? Here goes Jalen Waddle, 5-yard out. We're going to get I'll say illegal, right? But legal pick or legal screen by my man Gesicki, who's 6'7", okay, 6'8", huge tight end, right? Out of Penn State University, by the way. Okay. But I think that sets Tua up for success. And I think that's why. Just specifically, Joe, 100% yards after the catch. I think that's why they took Waddle in that spot, because I think that you're going to see him. He's going to be really good. He's going to be he's going to be a guy we need to look at for fantasy purposes too, because when Jeremy Grant was in there, Grant was actually their number one receiver. I think 3 out of the 6 weeks that he started. Okay, because when Fitzpatrick went out, Tua was looking for the short passing game, and that all went to Grant. So I think Waddle is in that same same situation, and I think that's why they drafted him above Devonta Smith, because they figure size in their mind probably had something to do with it too. Because if you're going to have a guy that lives across the middle, he needs to be pretty built up. He needs to be strong. He needs to be able to get through that second line of defense. And I think they thought Waddle had made a living doing that, and he had the previous relationship, and it plays right into his strengths. So that's my take on Waddle going for Devonta. Now, for quarterback, we talked about Jalen Hurts. What about Lamar Jackson? And again, the Lamar Jackson effect, the reason why I bring it up is because he did not have a good year last year, okay? And I want people to understand that. He did not have a good year last year. And there was, I would say, 90% of the fantasy football season, Lamar Jackson was under the top 15. Wasn't even in the top 15 of quarterbacks. Listen, he was a guy that you drafted very, very high. You expected the world out of Lamar Jackson. But everything for Lamar Jackson was down last year. Attempts were down. Completion percentage was down. Yards, touchdowns, yards rushing were down. Average yards per rush were down. And his interception total went up. Film was starting to get out on Lamar Jackson. And you're starting to get into that territory with the mobile quarterback and the success rate of how long they can maintain it, right? So the one good thing I will say about Lamar Jackson, he's got one of the best coaches in the NFL, and John Harbaugh. I absolutely love John Harbaugh, respect the hell out of him. And if anybody can get him back to where he needs to be, it'll be John, right? But the one thing I will say is Lamar did give us a nice sample size. Okay, weeks 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and even in a wild card game, he started to show back to form. Okay, now what do we do when we look at this year? Where do we bump him up? Where do we drop him to? So I think that's the obvious question, because I think everybody knows you got Mahomes, you got Josh Allen, you got Kyler Murray, right? But who's next, right? Who's next? Are you going to hang your hat on Lamar Jackson? I think you have to. Right? Honestly, I think you have to. But he's no longer that number one guy, in my opinion, right? So I think he drops to that 4 or 5 spot, which I think is probably going to be good value for somebody who wants to wait on a quarterback and not draft, because there are going to be quarterbacks that go in the first round. There's going to be quarterbacks that go early in the second round. So I think if it's a quarterback-driven kind of league, you'll be able to get Lamar Jackson in the end of the second round, which honestly, I talk about this from perspectives of season-long fantasy and the leagues that I'm in, where I see quarterbacks, 3 or 4 quarterbacks go in the first 2 rounds. It's what they do. People in my league love quarterbacks, so I'm looking at that perspective there. But as a quarterback overall, I think his ADP as a quarterback has to be between 4 and 5. I think probably closer to 5, because I think that everybody still wants to give Russell Wilson the benefit of the doubt, but you have guys that are going to jump up into that spot and kind of look for those guys to relinquish their stature there. And what I mean by that is you got guys like Justin Herbert, you got guys like Ryan Tannehill, right? You got guys like Dak Prescott coming off a severe injury. Okay, we just talked about Jalen Hurts, and I don't want to leave out my boy Matt Stafford. Okay. Now, Adam said you think Brady will be in the top 2 fantasy-wise. No, absolutely not. I am not in on Tom Brady this year. I wasn't in on Tom Brady last year, to be honest with you. I think Tom Brady, even though he has the weapons, even though, again, he has the skill set, right? We all know that, Hall of Fame quarterback. But I think Tom Brady, again, I was shocked at the numbers that Tom Brady put up last year. I did not expect, I didn't expect Tom Brady to be as good as he was. Now, he had his weeks, right? He had his weeks. Okay, what I can say is, listen, he had his weeks. That's all I'm going to tell you. But if you look at a perspective of quarterback, he was a 7th quarterback overall last year. He finished 7th. He almost hit 4,700 yards. He had 40 touchdowns, right? Crazy when you think about it. Still was 7th fantasy-wise. Okay, only because he didn't have the mobility numbers, right? It's pretty funny when you break down all the statistics. You look at a guy like, Josh Allen and Kyler Murray rushing for, 500, 600, 700 yards, and then all of a sudden, here goes Tom Brady inserted into the conversation with 6, right? I think it's hilarious. But Tom Brady, played at a high level last year when a lot of people didn't think he would. And he's got a ton of weapons out there. It really does. I mean, and those weapons are obviously what makes him great right now. Back in the day, it was Tom Brady making his weapons great. Now they're making Tom Brady, continue his greatness. And the rapport he built with the Mike Evans, again, was on another level. So I really like, and I expect more of that this year. So yeah, you know what, Adam, I just don't think that he can be able to, when teams go to Super Bowls and they come back the next year at that age, it's such a long season, at 45, 43, 44. I mean, when you're 40 plus years of age and you go through what they went through last year, and I know it was a little different because of COVID, but it still was a long drawn out, a long drawn out season because of all the protocols. So I think that's going to weigh on somebody like a Tom Brady. So I could see Tom Brady finishing in the top 10 because he is Tom Brady, but I can't see him being, last year he finished 7th overall, 410 fantasy points. Okay. Number 1 was Josh Allen. So last year, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, and then Tom Brady. And then a close second under Brady was Justin Herbert. And then under that, Ryan Tannehill, and rounding out the top 10 was Lamar Jackson. Now, here's the interesting part. What does that top 10 look like this year? Who's going to leapfrog into that next category? And I want to talk about my man, Matt Stafford. Okay? I want to talk about Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford, to me, is in a great situation. I think we all know this. We all understand this. So Matthew Stafford specifically goes from Motown, okay, the Motor City of Detroit, where everybody just goes to die anyway, right? We all know that. And goes to the offensive mastermind in Mr. Sean McVay. Now, everybody, I understand, on paper, everybody says, oh, it's only on paper, but let me throw some stats at you. Reason why that I'm behind Matthew Stafford as not only a top 10 quarterback, but could push for that top 7. 2018 for the LA Rams, a guy named Jared Goff, who we all know the limitations of Jared Goff. And Jared Goff now has become a Detroit Lion, right? It's almost like, an easy swap here. But what you have to look at is Matthew Stafford. He had 7 consecutive years of 4,500 plus, or I said, just say 4,000 plus. Okay. 7 consecutive years of 4,000 plus yards. This kid can sling it. And that was in Detroit. And I understand they had Megatron, but that's all they had was Megatron. Okay. That's all they had. And now if you go back and you look at 2018 for Jared Goff, and I say that because that's the year, okay, that was a Super Bowl year. We know that. But what Sean McVay was able to do with Jared Goff, 561 attempts, 65% completion percentage, 4,688 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 12 picks. I'm telling you, 24.1 fantasy points per game. That season right there should give you all you need to know about what to expect from Matthew Stafford this year with guys like Cooper Kupp, Rashawn Woods, Deshaun Jackson, Tyler Higbee, Cam Akers. The list goes on. The list goes on. This Rams team is going to be exciting. You remember back under Dick Vermeil with Kurt Warner, with that greatest show on turf with Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt and Marshall Falk, right? We remember that. Great Akeem, the greatest show on turf. And you remember from a fantasy perspective, anybody you put into the lineup that year, from anybody on that team gave you production. Okay, and that's going to be the Rams team this year. And that's why I'm all in on Matthew Stafford. I don't think he's getting enough love. And I don't know why. I mean, right now, the consensus is 17th. 17th, his ADP, his quarterback rank right now is 17th. You mean to tell me there's 16 better quarterbacks right now than Matthew Stafford? Are you kidding me? That's ridiculous. Let's even look at the list. Okay, let's look at the list. Just think about it. Matt Ryan ahead of Matt Stafford? No. Trevor Lawrence ahead of Matthew Stafford? No. Carson Wentz? No. Kirk Cousins? No. I mean, there's got Joe Burrow. I love Joe Burrow, but dude's coming off of a major injury. And now all of a sudden, he's going to put up better numbers than Matthew Stafford. I think it's ridiculous. And I'll tell you what. People are sleeping on Matthew Stafford, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's age. I don't know if it's because he's had a couple injury-plagued years, but look at his numbers specifically. You got to break down this film. And what I mean by that, when I say film, I know we're not out, but you got to break down the analytics of every season of Matthew Stafford. Stop piggybanking on 2019 and 2020. Stop it, because you're going to get lost. You're going to get lost because they were throwout years, okay? They were injury years. They were bad years for the team. There's a reason why Detroit has the name that they do, and they haven't been good since freaking goddamn Wayne Fontenot being coach with Barry freaking Sanders, okay? So, they went through so many quarterbacks. Joey Harrington, right? Think about the quarterback. Joey Harrington, Scott Mitchell, right? This Matt Moore, stiffs. Absolute stiffs. So, my man Matthew Stafford deserves some damn respect. Okay, look at his numbers from 2011 to 2017. And I know you're going to say, that was 3 years ago. Listen, he's only 33, man. And everybody's hitching a wagon to Matt Ryan. Are you kidding me? Stafford at 33, that is not old for a quarterback. We're just talking about Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady over 38 plus years old, 38 plus and 40 plus respectively. And you're not going to drop a little juice on Mr. Matthew Stafford? It's ridiculous. I'm sorry. I get a little crazy when I talk about it because I just think that, when I look at some of these rankings, that people are way out thinking themselves. So for me, Matthew Stafford has to be in consideration. Now, another guy, talk about 2 more guys before we get out of here. Not one guy's Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill last year, 24.7 points per game. Okay, when we talk about fantasy, 24.7, 24.5. I'm sorry, 24.5. Last year, Aaron Rodgers had 27.1 average fantasy points per game. That was an elite level, and that was number one in fantasy. That average. Ryan Tannehill was 3 points per week less. So you mean to tell me that adding a Julio Jones into your offense isn't going to give you that point plus 3 to get you to that elite status this year? It absolutely is. It absolutely is enough. So I think a lot of people again are going to sleep on Ryan Tannehill. Now, right now, he's looking at is on average as the 10th ranked quarterback, and that's consensus between everybody from sites like Sporting News and ESPN. And I'm just taking it as a whole of what I see. Right, not my rankings. Well, my rankings will come out obviously later, but right now, top 10, he's number 10 in the quarterback ranking system. So I think he absolutely will move up. I do. I think Ryan Tannehill, he has a lot of weapons this year. Again, you have to look at, from a fantasy perspective, what he was able to do with A.J. Brown and Corey Davis. So now this year he gets A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. So, and whenever you have a horse like Derrick Henry in the backfield, you already know you have the protection. Okay, you already know you're going to be facing an 8 to 9 man front, which is going to leave the middle of the field wide open. Okay, so I think it's going to be a huge year for Ryan Tannehill as long as he can stay healthy. Last year, he showed he was able to be healthy and able to be good. I mean, he had a lot of 30-point games last year. Specifically, he had six 30-plus point games from a fantasy perspective, and that's huge. Only one game where he did not throw any touchdowns, and only one game of a multi-interception game, right? So that's a big deal when we're talking about fantasy quarterbacks. So I really like Ryan Tannehill this year. I think the Julio Jones trade really, really helps him. Another guy I'm going to talk about I'm down on Matt Ryan. And again, Matt Ryan can only do it for so long. Okay, he can only do it for so long. And every year, everybody keeps thinking, is this going to be the year where Matt Ryan falters? Is this going to be the year Matt Ryan falters? So 2018, we thought it would be the year. He's 36 years old now. What'd he do? 26 points per game. No, he didn't falter. 608 attempts. Ridiculous. The following year, 2019, is he going to falter? No. 616 attempts, 23 points per game. Last year, is he going to falter? No. 626 attempts per game, 22.1. But you see a pattern. 26, 23, 22. This year, he loses Julio Jones. Now, I get it. I'm not saying this team's automatically going to blow up, but he's going to have to rely. I love Calvin Ridley. I think Calvin Ridley is a top 3 fantasy wide receiver. We're going to talk about that next week. But now you're going to have to rely on a rookie in Kyle Pitts. You're going to have to rely on guys like Russell Gage to pick up the slack. You have Mike Davis now, different style of running back in the backfield. I think that helps you out because he is a really good PPR guy, which they didn't really have in Gurley. So, now they have that guy in Mike Davis. But I don't think those attempts are going to hit 600 this year. I think it's going to revert back to a 2016, 2017 year where he was like 529, 534. I think that's going to be more Matt Ryan territory, maybe just hitting that 4,000 yard plateau, which is going to give him probably a middle of the road ranking anywhere between, average of 15 to 18. So I don't think he's the guy anymore that you can rely on and say, he's that guy I want to wait on, like a Phillip Rivers. Remember, Phillip Rivers was always the guy everybody waited on. They threw him in there because they knew he was going to give them positive points. Matt Ryan, same kind of deal. I don't think that's his, for me, this is not his year this year. I'm staying away from Matt Ryan. I think this is the year he finally comes back down to, to reality, and so to speak, when I talk about age, because there's two people I always say in this world that are undefeated, and that is Mother Nature and Father Time. You cannot outlast either one of them. So this is the year for me where Matt Ryan falters. So Adam says, I think Josh Allen, listen, Josh Allen was spectacular last year. Hope he's spectacular again, Adam. I do. I think that you can't expect guys like Stephon Diggs to have the kind of year he did last year, but I think very well that Josh Allen is going to be above Patrick Mahomes as the top quarterback in fantasy. I think 100% Josh Allen is going to be the number one fantasy quarterback this year. For me personally, I'll throw it out there that I think my top three is Josh Allen, Kyle Murray, and Patrick Mahomes. That's my top three. Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes. That's who I'm going with specifically for this year as my early preseason top three. I don't want to round out the top five yet because there's certain things I'm going to look at, but my top three, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray. But listen, this has been fantastic. I love getting the football talk going. We went about 50 minutes. I want to go 45, 50 today. We reviewed, if you want to review, we did some Major League Baseball DFS, talked about some early risers for the following week, give you guys some value, right? Don't forget, and I'll preview that again just so everybody can see it. I like to call this, a Value Play Sundays. Okay, we call it Value Play Sunday. I like it. I think we have something here. We're gonna look at guys like Dylan Carlson, Manuel Margot, Anthony Rendon, and that's for kind of this week. Specifically, we looked at the Proficient Pirates, Moran, Reynolds, Polanco, Newman, Evans, all guys 3,200, 3,100 or below that I think that you can get positive point production on for the following week. And then we looked at early $3,000 risers, under 3,000. Miles Straw, Jesus Sanchez, Shed Long Jr. Guys this week look to put in your lines to give you some decent value based on their number. And then we have the FFVP, okay, which is Trevor Larnach. He was supposed to be last year. Games got postponed. So we're going to ride Trevor Larnach again today. And then we talked about fantasy football and we talked about quarterbacks. We talked about why we need to fall in love with Matthew Stafford. We talked about the Jalen Hurts effect, and we talked about the number dropping considerably in Matt Ryan and the rise to fame in Ryan Tannehill. So, as always, like I said, another great shit to add on. Thank you, as always, man. I appreciate everybody rolling with me here. Win Daily Sports. Follow us at Win Daily Sports all over social formats. Subscribe to the YouTube page. You'll see me all week long. As always, I'll be active for Win Daily. I'll be active for Heat Ratio Sports. Just so everybody knows, Heat Ratio Sports, a lot of great personalities within that network. Check us out. We talk all different kinds of things as well. The Heat Ratio live show will be back July 6th. We took a little bit of a break to kind of rebrand a little bit, but to give you that local kind of flavor and to add some trending music stories into the fray, because we like to talk music on that show as well. So, and again, Fox Sports The Gambler, every day you can catch me around 3:50. I throw a fantasy nugget out there. Tomorrow will be 2 Start Mondays when we talk about 2 starting pitchers for MLB, DFS, and season long. But as always, it's Sunday. Get out, enjoy the day. I'm gonna do as well. I wish everybody luck on whether it be their bets, whether it be their DFS matchups. But listen, real fast. Let's get the conversation going. Keep an eye on that Win Daily Sports Twitter page. You're gonna start seeing some polls coming out. You're gonna start seeing some different kind of engaging kind of content. We get us ready for this fantasy football season, though. Keep it locked out. But as always, Tony Jigsaw Cutillo at TCutillo23. Give me a follow, get me in the threads. And as always, everybody stay safe and stay healthy. And I'll catch you next weekend.